I've also seen other founding teams that get hung up on what's my title and therefore what's my role. I would focus on what problem do we have to solve and would figure out the titles later. And frankly, you can put a title on anything, it doesn't really matter. We never change our long-term vision. So the long-term vision, which is to unlock unforgettable travel experiences, has always been a North Star from the first days through COVID, right? We believe in real life, in-person travel experiences, the things you do when you travel to experience the destination. So that's what we believe in. Everything we do is centered around that.
Okay guys, welcome back to Founders and Builders live at Panathēnea in Athens, Greece. We're joined by none other than Tao from GetYourGuide. Tao, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joe, for having me.
So for those that don't know, which is probably very few people, GetYourGuide is basically the best way, if you land in a new country, a new city, anywhere in the world basically, to book experiences that are suited for you. And I've used it for many years, so I'm super pumped to have Tao on the podcast joining us. You guys have had some phenomenal success. You've grown it to profitably over €1 billion in revenue annually, but this is Founders and Builders, right? So we love to go back to the early stages. What did the first 100 days of building GetYourGuide look like?
So we like to say it's a 17-year-old overnight success. Sometimes it takes a while. So in the very early days, we were in college, university in Zurich, and my co-founder Johannes and I, we were on a student trip to Beijing, which is where I'm originally from. And Johannes booked his trip wrong, so he got there too early, was totally lost. And this is 2008, so this is pre-roaming, pre-Wi-Fi everywhere. And he was high energy and was just totally lost. And then I arrived and I became his natural tour guide and opened the city up to him. We had great food, great sights, great people. And we just came back with the idea of it should be much easier for people to unlock cities and discover places. And we thought you could so easily book hotels and flights, but it's so hard to find things to do. And so, we played with the idea, found a few friends and just thought to ourselves, why not, right? Let's just try this, nothing to lose. We think this is a real problem to solve. So we just, took a shot at it.
Yeah. In marketplace businesses, I think the hardest thing is the cold start problem, right? And you guys will have experienced this. How did you solve for that in the early days? Did you focus on getting the providers of tours, the customers?
So I think it really depends on the marketplace. Typically, I would say in most marketplaces, you must get the supply first in some shape or form. And so we just cold called random operators. Our backgrounds was more, science and economics and engineers, but we just cold called everybody and said, hey, do you want to join? And look, we knew nothing about the travel industry. We knew nothing about marketplaces and we knew nothing about business. And we just started talking to people, started talking to operators and who later would become our partners. We started talking to customers and understand what they wanted. So I think it was just a big learning. Yeah, first 100 days was just, first year, I would say, tons of learning.
Mm-hmm. My favorite GetYourGuide experience was, we were talking about this before the show, was actually in Berlin, a walking tour about 7 years ago. I mean, if you haven't been to Berlin yet, definitely go and check out the walking tours because it's a city, your headquarters is based there, so rich with history. I'm wondering, what is the coolest or weirdest experience that you guys offer on GetYourGuide?
I like to think that experiences in a way is a form of self-expression. So, you might be somebody who's into history, maybe off the beaten path. For others, it's more about the iconic thing. So it really depends. Others are really into food. So we have incredible, cooking classes. Others into thrills. So they would enjoy the helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon. So I think it really depends. I would generally say there are some really quirky things in Japan. So one of my favorite things, and this on my honeymoon, is we did a knife making workshop in Kyoto where you first hammer the iron and it's about getting the impurities out, then it's sharpening it, and you have a final knife and you can take it home. And this is by like a company, a family that has been doing samurai swords for hundreds of years. And so you get up that tradition, you get to doing something. So that's really cool. But look, I think there is so much creativity and human ingenuity in coming up with these experiences. And I think, especially in the last 10 years, a lot of new experiences were created because there are now platforms like ours that are great for distribution. Versus when we started, almost 20 years ago, the the experience was more standardized, and I would even say tours back then was not as sexy of a word. So you would associate it maybe with, you follow a big group, megaphone.
You can barely hear the guide.
You can barely hear the guide. You do a mandatory souvenir stop. They get a kickback. That has really, really changed. So I would say experiences now is mini niches for everybody, really creative stuff. I love, speaking of quirky, we have the sumo experience in Tokyo where you eat so when you are a sumo fighter and you retire, many of them open like these training stalls for sumo fighters, and they serve the traditional chicken hot pot because it's high protein. And so you eat the chicken hot pot and watch some sumo practice. So that's another cool experience we have.
You guys actually started the company with 5 co-founders, which is pretty unique. How did you decide what each of you would work on, and what's your, most of the people watching are starting the business for the first time. What learnings, experiences would you share on finding the right co-founders?
I think the honest answer is we got quite lucky with that 5-person group, and 4 of us are still in the business, quite involved, full time. And so I think, luck as in anything, finding co-founders, picking the right market, picking the right timing. I love to say how brilliant we are, but at the end of the day, luck and timing is such a big component. Now, with the co-founders, I would say that what did unite us from the early days is very shared values. And, companies talk about company culture and these core values. And I would say we were very similar in many ways. We were all very curious and with a growth mindset, knowing that our version tomorrow needs to be better than, our version today. Always learning, always improving. We always had very high standards. So I think we're very similar in that sense. And that has really helped us to keep the group together until today.
Mm-hmm. And you're the COO, so Chief Operating Officer. Yeah. What have you learned about the importance of that role, right? Because oftentimes the CEO is focusing on pitching the business externally, hiring, getting investors. CTO, CPO is working on how do we build the platform. What does the role of a COO in a business like GetYourGuide look like?
Maybe not the answer that helps, but it really depends. I've seen businesses where the COO runs the business, and I've seen businesses where the COO is just a sales guy, right? So I think it really depends. For us, for our business, because we're a two-sided marketplace, my predominant strategic area is on the supply side. So working with the local attractions and theme parks, but also looking after other areas of operations like customer service or our customer success for our partners and localization and content, those kind of areas. But I would say it really depends. I will admit, and this might be similar for some of your listeners who are in the early days trying to find what does my role do? I think the honest answer in most cases is it really depends on what problem you're trying to solve. And I've also seen other founding teams that get hung up on what's my title and therefore what's my role. I would focus on what problem do we have to solve, and we'll figure out the titles later. And frankly, you can put a title on anything. It doesn't really matter.
Super quick one from me. Every week, as you know, we ask our listeners what is one product or one tool that they couldn't live without. And this week, it's Deal. If you're building a global team, Deal brings all of your hiring, payroll, and compliance into one unified platform across over 150 different countries. And now their AI agents also handle all of the admin, that's onboarding, time off, and payroll issues automatically without you having to do anything. So if you're interested to learn more, check out Deal. But for now, let's get back into the episode. The wave of AI and LLMs that are coming through companies, some companies are having to be rebuilt completely from the ground up. What have these generative AI models meant for GetYourGuide?
Super exciting, first of all. As a founder, you have this builder DNA, and now it really enables founders who are now, management to really live that builder mindset again. And it's, I've built apps internally, externally, and processes. I've built my cloud co-work with Obsidian routine, which a lot of people now use to build their second brain system. So
yeah, I've heard Obsidian coming up a lot more. I feel like it went through a wave.
Yeah.
And then people forgot about it because it was a lot to maintain.
Well, so for those who don't know Obsidian is really just a UX on top of markdown files that live on the computer. So you can use any text editor. And you don't even need Obsidian. I think the key is to have these MD files, or text files basically, that live on the computer for persistent context. And you can essentially build an operating system using text files. right? So I have these scheduled tasks, I have these automated skills described in text files, and it just really empowers me. I mean, I had a C++ one semester 20 years ago, and which I think I failed. So I'm not a particularly good engineer. But it enables people like me now to really build things from the ground up. But to your question on AI, the way we look at AI, there are three things. One is, how does AI change our company strategy and how we should position ourselves towards the consumer or our partners?
Sure.
Two is like, what are some truly AI first applications? And then three is, how does AI help overall productivity and make everybody better? In terms of the first strategy part, and I think also as a founder, we had to learn over time that strategy matters. Because in the early days, it's just like growth and building and scaling. Yeah. And strategy is about choices. And as we got bigger, we have to start to make choices one way or the other. And with AI, for us, it's really about choosing to play in trust and context and proprietary data that you build as a marketplace that will keep you relevant as a marketplace in the age of AI. So that's one example. In terms of what are some applications we build AI first, similar to the learnings everybody's now making, how Anthropic is now much more the flavor of the month than maybe OpenAI, is because B2B is just incredibly amplified with AI. And so most of our applications actually on the supplier side. So on the the local operators who use AI to create listings, to optimize the listings, to get insights and tips. So that's where we've seen over 70-80% adoption of AI tools, which we've shipped to our suppliers. And lastly, I think on empowering everybody to learn AI. Frankly, I've started looking at like Y Combinator videos again, or other because I'm also learning like what does it take to build an AI first company. So there, I think we actually have a lot to learn from these very AI native companies and trying to implement some of that stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned the strategy and the customer facing angle. I could imagine, like dream scenario, let's say you and I are on a trip and we land in a brand new city, bringing up the GetYourGuide app and just having like a real conversation, and it being able to kind of, hey, have you thought about, because right now it's this kind of static text experience in search.
So we have a lot of machine learning and AI that powers recommendations, ranking, filters, and a lot of dynamic content that everybody sees different content. However, we take the slightly contrarian view that conversational mode is not necessarily the way to select things you want to buy. So let's take an extreme example. You wouldn't use a chat interface to buy clothing, right? Sure. You wouldn't use a chat interface to book an Uber or a Bolt ride. And similarly, if you want to book an experience, you want to see it, you want to touch it, you want to look at pictures, you want to see customer reviews, you want to compare, see it side by side. So definitely conversation will help to refine, to make it more relevant. Yeah. But I still think there is something about a haptic UX experience that is still quite valuable. And that's what we also see in user testing. So whenever we present more chat-like interfaces, that helps you to get some initial ideas. But when it comes down to comparing, okay, I want to book this Acropolis tour, 7 a.m. versus 10 a.m. This is where I can bring maybe my stroller. This one is for small groups. Oh, this one has interesting reviews. You just want to scroll and discover. It's almost like a magazine. I think that experience today is still more appealing to customers. But as customers get more AI savvy and conversational refinement savvy, I think that will probably change as well.
You've been building GetYourGuide for 15, 16 years now. Yeah. You've retained 4 of the original 5 co-founders. You've been playing a long-term game, a game of resilience. What have you learned about making sure that the team is aligned as you navigate these changes? Product lines that you may have staffed a whole engineering unit around that are now no longer relevant because of, AI.
I mean, so many things, right? One is we never change our long-term vision. So the long-term vision, which is to unlock unforgettable travel experiences, has always been a North Star from the first days through COVID, right? We believe in real life, in-person travel experiences, the things you do when you travel to experience the destination. So that's what we believe in. Everything we do is centered around that. So a clear North Star. Another one I would say is definitely just good communication and real talk. So when we had COVID, or whenever there's a big crisis, you just want to be real with your people, right? Ultimately, you hire very intelligent, capable, mature human beings, and you should treat them like you want to be treated, right? So the golden principle definitely applies. I remember in COVID, during certain periods, we shared our cash balance, like how much cash is in the bank with people. Because look, we're in the same boat. This was a time when, you know, food delivery, online events, like all these things were thriving. And then I remember sitting at lunch with one of our engineering directors. He was getting at lunch 4 headhunter calls. Right? And it was like, is this normal? I was like, yeah, this is a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right?
It was peak on-demand delivery boom, especially in Germany. You had some incredible companies like Gorillas. It was peak crypto boom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all of that, right? And so the only reason, you know, some of these, and we, from our, we're very proud that from the directors or senior leadership population, not a single person left during COVID. And part of that is they were bought into the long-term vision, into the culture, and we were always fully transparent of what do we see? What we see is what you see. This is where we're going. These are the signs of recovery we're seeing. Why are we keeping investing in the future, in the product? Look, and that builds a lot of trust, right? And ultimately, that resilience, you know, you want to role model that, and then people hopefully, you know, take some of that.
I have to ask, because obviously the business you founded is Get Your Guide. What has been your favorite travel experience that shaped you?
I mean, there have been many. So it's like favorite child, right? No, many great experiences. I would say I picked 2. From a thrill perspective, I would say helicopter ride in the Grand Canyon is just spectacular. It's just from a sights. Number 2 on sites would be Petra. And so anyone who has not been to Petra, go there. It's fascinating because you first walk through a mini ravine canyon-ish thing, and then suddenly you have the Indiana Jones, it's called the Treasury, in front of you, and it's just wow. I mean, it's been there for 1,000+ years, right? So, and then I think from a most culturally interesting, I remember taking a private tour through Jerusalem. Super fascinating because the way he described it is like, so we have a melting pot because you have history, you have culture, you have politics, and you have 4 or 5 parts of content: the Armenian side, the Jewish side, the Muslim side, the Christian side. And he said
it's a unique place.
It's a unique place.
As the birthplace of three
religions
of the world's most important religions.
Obviously, politically, like very, very tense. So he says it's like a big melting pot, but it's not melting, right? So that was super fascinating. He guided us through the backyards. We got to, you know, meet people from all the quarters and all the religions. That was super fascinating.
Awesome. Tao, thank you so much for your time. This has been so much fun.
Thanks so much, Joe.